Okay, I guess I got to do this for disclaimer purposes, but all right, here we go. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Judas and the Black Messiah yet, I suggest you download this episode, bookmark it, and go watch the movie. And then once it's done, play this episode right after. I'm not demanding that you do it in this order. It's more of a suggestion that I expect for you to follow. I just don't want to spoil anything for you, nor my guests. So if you play this before you watch it, it's your fault. All right, okay. So I put out my disclaimer. I've fulfilled my duties and responsibilities as a podcast creator. My soul is clear and clean. And we can start the show now. Spoiler alert over. Today on the Ave Podcast, with the lack of movies being released during this COVID era, when you come across a great one, especially one regarding this subject matter, it just feels right to explore it, at least to me. And when you come across something like this particular movie with the type of actors in it, you almost feel crazy not to discuss it. So I'm joined today by Andrew Mambo, reporter and producer of National Public Radio, NPR, as well as DJ and producer DJ Keo, as we have a conversation about the Shaka King-directed, critically acclaimed movie, Judas and the Black Messiah. We break down the impact on Fred Hampton's charismatic leadership, the role of William O'Neill and his affliction with being a secret agent for the Black Panther Party, how Lakeith Stansfield and Daniel Kaluuya, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, added quality and grace to their roles. And we also break down the need to have more of these movies from the Black community, especially since the lack of representation is having its effect on Hollywood, believe it or not. And you'll understand what I mean when we dive into this topic later into this episode. I hope you enjoy. South Sharav is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go ahead and continue to rate, review, and subscribe. It costs you nothing but about 13 seconds of your time, max. Hit the like button, the favorite button, and click on every star that's available. It's 5, just in case you don't feel like counting. And head over to southsharav.com to check out my catalog of all my podcast shows. Once again, that's southsharav.com. It's the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Sharav Radio. Anywhere there's people, there's power.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Sharav Radio.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast. My first guest is the DJ producer. He's been on my podcast in the past. The last time he was on it was for the 25th anniversary of the Fugees' classic album, The Score. And you can check him out on his YouTube channel under his name. So please welcome DJ Keo to the show. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks for bringing me back.
Yes, sir.
Good
as
to
always.
be here.
No problem. My next guest has been on my podcast in the past, but it's been a while since he swung on the Ave. But the last time he was on, he was one of the podcast producers for ESPN's 30 for 30 podcast. But now he's got a new cape on, and he's now a producer and reporter for the renowned NPR, which is the National Public Radio. And as a hobby, he also gets a high letting me destroy his fantasy football team every time, like a consistent.
Ooh.
It's like Christmas or New Year's or Easter.
No.
That kind of thing. Just ignore what he's saying right now.
Check that.
Just ignore what he's saying right now. Please welcome back Andrew Mambo to the show.
Jesus.
How you doing today, sir?
Why do I keep doing this? Why do I have to die? Nothing but lies.
How you doing today, sir?
Thank you for having me, Calvin.
Oh, thank you.
Really
You're welcome.
That. What an amazing intro.
You're welcome. That makes me feel great. Thank you. I know that was heartfelt. Thank you. So we're here today to have the conversation about the latest great movie coming to America, which was as riveting as anything that I've seen this century. I'm completely blown away. You know, it just blows the original out in every way possible. Okay, I can't even keep up with the line. Let's try this again.
I feel like this is reminiscent of that time I was on the show when we were supposed to talk about Boomerang, and I thought we were talking about Coming to America. Was that it, or was it the opposite?
You're like, wait a minute. Where are we supposed to come in?
Are we actually talking about Coming to America 2 today? Because I definitely was expecting a different movie.
Yeah. So was I. Let's not even pretend that movie happened. Let's just try to pretend that it didn't exist.
That's a travesty, man. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it because it just gets me angry.
I mean, but hold on. Okay, hold on. Okay, in a light defense of Coming to America 2 or whatever in a very faint light defense of that movie, what could you possibly have expected? The first movie is preposterously ridiculous in its premise and the way it portrays Africans. It's super fucking dumb and offensive. How the hell was the sequel supposed to be remotely better?
I mean, that's a good point.
The fact that people are panning it, but if you actually watch the original without having the nostalgia of your childhood attached to it, it is a terrible movie.
But it's a classic.
This one's worse,
bro.
though. This one's definitely worse.
No, well, I mean, I didn't even think we were gonna really even share an opinion on this. But the one thing I'll say is, I did not have high expectations of that movie. I really didn't. But my God, man, my God. That's all I can get out of my mouth right now. I can't even formulate the sentence to even get to describe just my real feelings about this movie without actually passing out in anger. But it was
bad. It bad.
It was really bad. Wow.
It is very bad.
Wow.
It's very bad.
Wow. So
very bad.
Yeah. You want to? Yeah. So I invited you guys here to have a real conversation about Judas and the Black Messiah. The new movie about Fred Hampton, the leader of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party, and William O'Neill, the FBI agent for hire that infiltrated said party and helped to get Hampton assassinated. This movie was directed by Shaka King and produced by Charles D. King, Ryan Coogler, and Shaka King. It's gotten rave reviews right now. It's 96% on Rotten Tomatoes if you value that, and it's already been nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. So just to begin, I just want to focus on the two main actors. How good are Lakeith and Daniel in this movie?
They did a phenomenal job, honestly. I think they're both strong actors, and you can kind of see their range. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know anything about the story and you just saw this movie, it's believable. You feel the stress and the pressure that they're under from both of them. Mm-hmm. And from different perspectives, you can feel the pressure that they're under for, what's happening around them, and the kind of stuff that they're forced to deal with. It's a really good job. Somebody deserves to win an award for it. I'll give it. I'll put it like that, for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Mambo?
The acting is absolutely phenomenal, and you're definitely right with the winning of an award. And speaking of the awards, what is going on with the categorization of them both being placed in the supporting actor category?
No. Really? Oh my God!
You didn't see this?
I didn't see that. No.
I didn't. Oh wow.
Oh no, they were both. So apparently, and wow. I think Warner Brothers came out and actually said that they did not submit them both as supporting actors, but I guess the Academy and the way that it works is, I guess, enough people submit, I don't know how exactly it happened, but apparently the explanation I saw was that people can write in categories or make a push for something or change where they want somebody to be placed, mm-hmm. and essentially, I think the ask was to have. I suppose I don't know what they actually if it was Lakeith or Daniel. I guess Daniel was in actor and Lakeith in supporting,
right?
And enough people in the members of the Academy voted to have Daniel in supporting, or nominating him in supporting instead of being the lead actor. That's very strange.
That's unbelievable.
The Academy is run by buffoons. I'd say it. they've been trashed for decades. We've always been complaining about the Oscars and just how they pick categories and who's running in, because they've changed the system multiple times. They've added more minorities, and they've done all this stuff to kind of make it better, and it's still trash. This is an oversight of, like, how do you have the lead actor and his co-star in the same category for an Oscar? And it's not like this is a year packed with movies. This is the year where there's even less movies than normally because nothing came out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how do you have this problem still? That blows my mind. Every time I'm thinking like, no, the Oscars can't sail this hard. Like, no, they can't. They'll find a way.
Like that saying goes, anytime you think you can't get any lower, you take me to the curb, right? Like,
yeah,
that's crazy to hear. Like, and it's not so like hearing the story, like, it doesn't even surprise me. You just kind of shake your head because it's just like these things happen so often. Like, I mean, just a few years ago, you had the whole Oscar so white thing, and it's like 5 years later, and they're still making these kind of mistakes. Like, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
But with these guys, like, especially with Lakeith, like, there's a reason why he's like a critically acclaimed actor right now, or a star even, because like, and I guess you can kind of speak to this for both of them, but their work is so diverse and trusted, and you're looking at somebody like Lakeith from ATL all the way to like The Photograph last year, the movie he shot with Issa Rae. But it's like, as soon as I saw his face, like, I trusted the movie as soon as I saw the role he was kind of playing. And I think with him, just how the movie starts off with him impersonating the FBI agent to come and steal the car, and but then he gets arrested right away. Like, it kind of kicks off the movie in a way that most movies that are like based on a true story aren't normally done. It just kind of hits you right away. With, like, I mean, it's kind of, there's some action, but there's some like real level acting. Like, you can kind of feel like all his emotions in that just in those first opening minutes. You know what I mean? And I really appreciated that from the beginning. Like, right away, like, it kind of grabbed my attention just from those like opening couple of minutes.
Yeah, no, and Lakeith Stansfield, a phenomenal actor, and I think taking on that role is interesting. I think he's a brilliant person to be in that role because it's a super complex character, right? He's very, very conflicted, and the whole goal is to have the audience feel very conflicted about him.
Right.
And so he kind of transcends that. It's fascinating. I mean, it was fascinating to watch the way he portrayed Bill O'Neill, and it was really enjoyable to watch because he really like embodied the character, and he embodied the like conflict that was within him.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because he's technically the bad guy in the movie, but you're still kind of like, I hope he's okay. Like, why you shouldn't feel that way about him, but you're like, dude, I hope he's getting up to this thing. Why is the cops bothering him like that? But he's the bad guy in the movie.
Yeah.
But you feel sympathy for him because the way that he becomes the bad guy, right? Like, it's like the way that he comes into it is the way that you can feel a sense of sympathy. And you are watching, and while you're watching, I thought was interesting is there are moments when you're just like, wait, is he in or is he out? Like, is he a double agent? Is he not? It kind of, it was, I thoroughly enjoyed, I think, obviously, and we'll get into like, Daniel's portrayal of Fred Hampton, but Lakeith Stansfield portrayal of Bill O'Neill was phenomenal and had you kind of like moving all over the place in terms of the emotions and what you feel for him. A lot of characters in the film are all very straightforward, but his was the one that, you kind of twisted and turned around throughout.
Yeah, it's a long way from ATL. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah,
but it's funny though because like I think the way especially the era that we come from, you're not designed to love the quote unquote snitch, right, or the quote unquote rat. But I think that's what the perfect marriage between great script writing, great directing, and then great acting, because you really felt for him. You know what I mean? At that point in time, like. Normally, some of these movies, you're just like, I can't stand this guy. You know what I mean? Like, you already
can't wait to get this comeuppance.
You choose a side immediately. You know what I mean? And then it's like, but like, you guys are right. Like halfway, not even halfway through, like pretty much from what he was doing, you're like, man, this guy, man, like, like this is what I didn't know the full depths of William O'Neill, to be honest. To be quite honest with it, And like seeing that from the beginning, you're just like, oh man, like geez. But knowing how Fred Hampton dies, like you're just like, man, this is gonna be messed up. But like the way he played it, it was so riveting. It's like you had love for the quote unquote snitch.
Yeah.
For the informant.
Yeah.
But it's like that's not.
And also like there are moments when you like I feel that you're like, is he setting them up or is he down for the cause in moments? Like is he changing his tune?
Like there's stuff that he didn't want to. There are things that he didn't want to cross, like without giving anything away about the movie. Like there's moments where he was like, I don't want to do this. Like it's like too far. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating, and it's hard to be like, well, what I would do in his situation or whatever. Like it's a different time, and people handle pressure differently, and that's why I think that you can relate to what he was going through throughout the movies, because it's a different situation where today there's people you can complain to about it or whatever. You can call your lawyer. There was no lawyers to call back then. Yeah. That was it. They got you on something. That's your life's over.
So I guess it kind of leads me to the question: how major was that pressure on Bill to do what he did? Like
that could be insane. For you in that time frame to go to a state pen, that's a problem.
Yeah. That
the local jail or whatever was bad, but the state pen, that's a whole different beast. And I think that it was a no-brainer for him to be like, well, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it.
I mean, he was, I think the one thing that gets lost in this, and that is that Bill O'Neill, this is all happening to him, is only 19 years old.
Yeah, everyone's kids when this thing happened.
Yeah, they're all kids. I mean, Fred Hampton was what, 21?
21
when he was killed?
Yeah.
So, they're so young. And I can imagine, when I was 19, like what? Somebody could jam you up and...
We were just trying to go to soca parties.
The FBI? I mean, the FBI of all people.
Yeah.
The amount of pressure that you're feeling in that time. And, and the physical abuse that most likely would have been coming his way.
Or worse,
to pressure him. I mean, the threats on your life that might have come along with that, and so
it's crazy because like obviously like he essentially helps to bring down the movement, but I think what's insane to me is at the end of the movie, when he kills himself right after the Eyes on the Prize documentary airs on PBS, like the day after, right? So like that,
you just walked out, did it?
Right, so that guilt never really left him. You know what I mean? Because to me, like thinking, like just putting myself in his shoes for a moment, it's like, to me, it's sad because like just seeing what was happening to the black community, especially during that time, to basically put himself in that position to help destroy the movement. So it's like by stealing cars and getting caught, like his life forever changed. You know what I mean? As a teenager, essentially, as a very young man, not even a full adult yet. And like it's weird. Like I wonder, like watching the movie, like would it have been better for his psyche just to go to jail instead? Because I feel like being free on the other end of it and being a part of destroying somebody who was essentially trying to empower the movement and the community, through the Black Panthers and what they were doing with free lunches and trying to educate and those type of things. Like I feel like it was almost worse than anything, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
because he went from just boosting cars into being in gun shootouts. That's a huge acceleration for crime.
Yeah. Like just to me, it's like I just look at that. I'm like, I'm thinking like the pressure that's just on him as well. Like it's got to be so immense because, just to touch on what you're saying before, like just the fact that the FBI took you in, and especially back in them days when the FBI takes you in and J. Edgar Hoover's involved. Like just going to jail isn't enough for a black man. That can literally mean the end of your life.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that.
You kind of got that impression of what jail was like for people. They had when Fred went to jail, and that dude was when he was eating food at the table, the lunch table, and that dude was all carved up.
What did they carve into his chest? I couldn't make that out.
I couldn't tell either.
I mean, either.
Okay, so it wasn't just me then. I was like, maybe my eyesight's going, but I couldn't. I was trying to make
No. I probably should have. I just saw it. I'm like, ugh. That kind of, yeah. Mm-hmm. I just wanted that scene to be over, kind of thing, because it was graphic, man.
Very
but
much so.
I think that was just to give you the impression of what jail is really like and what these guys could do to you with no repercussions, like just to give you that impression. Because people think like today, jail can either be like a walk in the park where you're reading books in the library, or you got to deal with the booty monster or whatever. Like what that dude from, like it's just that craziness. Like that's the options you got here,
right?
But like it depends on what jail you go to and the situation, whatever. But all jail was bad back then.
Yeah,
all of them was ridiculous.
Like
you do not want to go to jail.
Go ahead.
Calvin's point earlier is like, I don't even know if it was a jail question, right? Like, was he even going to make it to jail?
Oh, yeah.
If he didn't go along with,
Yeah, you think of
which is a question, which is the thing you ask yourself, and then like, in when you're 19 years old, and you're like, do you have the conviction, the strength at that age to stand up and I don't know. It's like a lot of sympathy for the character.
You got to think about how bad it was to deal with the police, that these guys formed the gang with like AK-47s and stuff like that, just to push back on it. Like, how bad were the police back then?
I know.
Like, just for perspective.
I know. Like, that's the scary part, right? Like, the fact that they had to get that radical, in some sense to basically, to really and truly to kind of protect themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
and the thing is, like, it wasn't like, I can't believe you guys are doing this. Why you guys in our neighborhood? Everyone's like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was detractors back then, but generally people were like, yeah, I understand why they're here. I don't blame them.
But that's the thing too. Like, there's a quote that he says, where he's talking about, the badge is scarier than the gun. In terms of him robbing guys like with a gun wasn't as lethal as using a badge. Like the thought of that, is really scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Power.
Really, really and truly. Like, and like I said, to me again, like the fact that like again, like he wrestles with that mindset, all the way till he died, because like, at the end of the movie where he's talking about like, and I'm reading different quotes and stuff like offline, kind of prepping for this, but he's still saying like he was part of the struggle, even though he also played a part in tearing it down. So it's like after all these years, like he still didn't quite figure that out. So but it's scary to think like at that time, standing up on your own with no lawyers, no team behind you. You're 19 years old, 20 years old, and you're in the late 60s, early 70s, where that shit was really real. That was literally life or death. When you put yourself on the line like that.
Yeah.
So that's like, and in terms of his position, like, yeah, I don't think any of us will go and say like we envy that. Well, obviously we don't, but like I just think it's just really like we're at this stage in life where we're always talking about like the mental health aspects of of life and what everybody's going through. Can you imagine the mental health of somebody like him at that point? You know what I mean? To even deal with something like that, and as well as like a lot of people dealing with that during that period in time in the United States, like, it's that's a real internal struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's unimaginable.
So, my next question is, what made Fred Hampton, so powerful to you guys? Like, just from watching this movie.
I think that he had a way of reading people. And kind of, like leaders in general, like you have to be able to relate to people and people to see you in themselves, and kind of like that. He had that. That's something that you can't teach.
Yeah. And
it makes you like somebody that you would like to follow. Like people could see when he's talking, they're like, oh, okay, well, this guy's making sense. Whether or not you agree with everything that he was saying or doing, you could he had that thing. Like, I know it's very few people. I equate it to like Obama when he came on the scene, people were like, okay, that guy, I can see that guy leading. Fred Hampton had that, the way he was talking, and like for the movie, they had it, with the future wife. She tells him like, okay, you're going too hard, ease it back, but just say something like this and make it more relatable. And this thing it grew even bigger because he had that thing. Very few people are able to stand a crowd and get people to be on your side, no matter what you're saying. And he was saying some wild stuff. Let's be real here. Yeah. Like the thing about he was talking about the pigs and all that stuff. And they're basically advocating for communism, and everybody's like, "Yes, let's go,
let's go."
Yeah, I think that he had that leadership thing that regular people don't have, and it's a thing that's lacking in the black community right now. There's no who's talking like that right now about anything. I don't know who to point to and be like, yo, that guy, he's seeing stuff, like we need to get behind him. There's very few people. I honestly can't think of anybody on that level.
I mean, charismatic leaders are hard to.
Yeah, it's like a once in a generation type thing that you get people.
Yeah. And to have that much power, that much influence, that much charisma, and power at 21 years old. I mean, that's absolutely, it's phenomenal. And the fact that he was able to organize people and motivate people and motivate across, these invisible barriers.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the thing that really scared people, was his ability to, the Rainbow Coalition of different groups and bringing them together. I mean, that's what really terrified people.
People that didn't need him either. Their groups are all solidified in their own right, and they still got together with what he was doing. That's the crazy part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you think the KKK's led white groups, the Hispanics, some of the black gangs out there, they're all mobilizing to become kind of one, and it's that's always a thing, especially back in those days when our leaders are getting picked off. This was always the thing that they're always fearful of, right? Of uniting more than just themselves. So that to me is always and it kind of makes you wonder. It's what is it that I feel like it's almost a rhetorical question, but you're kind of what makes them, why historically are they always threatened by us with that? You know what I mean? Where it's you look at history and it's there's so much wrong that's being done. This group is coming and it's no, we can't let this happen. So looking at him, it's kind of how he united people to together at such a young age. It's, to me, I thought that was very influential, and I didn't even realize that's it was to that degree where he was, uniting different groups and different communities in the city of Chicago. That to me was, it's crazy. Because to me, when when you're fighting for your rights, you know what I mean, during those times, and to be treated accordingly, especially back in those days, it didn't seem I don't know, it didn't seem it just didn't seem like dying for what you believed in. It wasn't it makes it seem like it wasn't something to be afraid of, which in itself is kind of crazy. It's crazy, it's courageous, but it's it's powerful, but it's also scary. No matter the age, it's a tremendous sacrifice.
The thing that unifies all of these groups is poverty and people abusing the system and power. It doesn't matter how the poor white trash guy can agree with the dude from the hood that there's a power at play that's affecting how everyone's life is going. Everybody can agree with that, no matter how racist you are. You can be well, yeah, we got the same issue. We got the same people doing it to us. There's no question. I think their unifying thing in the movie was the police, but at the end of the day, they still all had the same problem, and they all can relate to each other. And I think that's one of the things about the driving force for the movie, is how people related to each other, and in ways that I didn't think they thought possible.
Yeah, there was a built-in connection point that was just there. You know what I mean? I guess people weren't realizing that there was something that was constantly unifying them in that aspect. And
yeah.
And in that.
When you realize you're like, I'm not the one keeping you in your position. I'm not the one holding you down.
Yeah,
we need
exactly.
to like come together and look at the, and look at the person who, look at the structure that is actually holding us down. And it terrifies. And that's like, anytime you try to access that power, you will get some swift retribution.
And especially, I'm saying especially back then because, I'm kind of that belief where that kind of still happens in terms of that. But especially back then, it's, like that sacrifice it's a real thing. But I get it. You know what I mean? Because you're literally like just to fight for civil rights. You know what I mean? Like the type of abuse that our people were getting put through. And for them, it's like, I guess I'll touch on this point a little bit later, but like, just take that stance in the face of everything that's happened prior to that. That's what like it really makes it like courageous, and to be so
they're
young.
They're not that far removed from Malcolm X and Martin being killed. Like that's really close to each other when this movie happens.
Yeah.
It's very close. It's very fresh.
No, absolutely.
And those are not the only people that died. Like I think that's the most high profile people remember, but they were knocking people all over the place.
Oh my God. It was I don't even know if you could put a list on that. Like it's that's probably another podcast.
Yeah,
in
no,
itself.
I mean,
I don't want to go there, but I'm just saying, like the block was hot. All right, let's put it like that.
and they knew it though. I mean, they knew it as they organized. That's how strong their convictions and their beliefs were, and how they knew what they were doing was right, and it needed to be done, and somebody needed to do it. I mean, they, and it's phenomenal when you see how young to have that conviction and that knowledge, and put your life on the line at that age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing though, you're
Incredible.
getting to something that is to take up arms and be like, we're going to tear down the system. Like that's a huge life choice.
Yeah.
Let's put it like that. That's a major life choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a minor thing of, well, I'm going to take a knitting, or I'm going to try basketball in later on the evening time. Like that's a major life choice you chose.
If I don't make the team, it's okay. I'll check for another sport. Like, no, it's not quite like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge deal that these guys are like, yo, I'm going to put my life on the line right now for this cause. And if we got to shoot at cops, so be it. Like that, you got to think about it from the perspective compared to like people today. Like how many people really put their life on the line for a cause like that today?
Yeah.
Not a lot. There's the fake people, but they're doing it for Instagram clicks and that kind of stuff. They're not really going to do it.
Yeah, and it's easier to do it from your thumb than opposed to walking the streets and fighting that systematic oppression, that kind of stuff, right? Like it's
absolutely,
it is a major life decision. It's a good way of putting it. It's a definite life choice that you kind of have to make, right? Like there's no humming and hawing on that, really and truly. Like it's not like, oh, we don't take some time, Mambo, and Andrew, take some time and think it over. Come back to me next month and see how you feel.
You can't go back. You can't walk that back. You were shooting an AK-47 out of a building at police. You're not going back from there. That's your job now. That's it. That's all you're going to be known for.
Yeah,
it's like that.
If you talk to them, they tell you it's not a choice; it's a calling, right? Like you feel that you don't really have a choice. You know what I mean? You've been chosen. You feel the passion, like you have to do what you have to do it, and especially back then, and knowing how dangerous it was back then. It is different now, and there's so many different ways to be active now, and you can be socially active all online, and it still has power, right? Like you can be socially active on Twitter, and that's powerful, like we joke about it, but it still has power and still can get things done and make and actually affect change in a way that that just did not exist, right? Back then, you literally had to physically put your life on the line. You physically had to go and march and whether you were just worried about getting beaten up or whether you were worried about getting killed, like that was what you had to do.
Yeah, you put physical skin in the game. You weren't worried about, this bad tweet that says I support some kind of thing is going to get me fired from a job. Like you put skin in the game being part of any of this stuff back in the day. Like, it was the legit skin in the game.
Yeah.
And it, affected your family, affected everybody. Like, that's the thing. I think that's why they took it so serious, because it wasn't a joke. You couldn't kind of halfway do it. You were in or you weren't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to kind of touch on what Mambo was saying, like touch on what Andrew's saying is like, and I get what you're saying too with the social media aspect of it now, because a couple of clever or like carefully constructed hashtags, for example, or movements could start a movement, I should say. And we've seen it, right? Like we've actually, been in this era where we've actually seen that, where it's like all of a sudden it's like it could bring down a corporation. You know what I mean? It could bring down an entire genre sometimes. You know what I mean? And you're just like, what just happened? Like a whole company would just fold because of some hashtags that deal with racism or or brutality, or you know what I mean, or prejudice to just whatever. Like there's so much different things that come along with it too. But like back in these days, that was like, obviously technology it wasn't where it is obviously now, but like that really was a firm decision you had to make. And sometimes you didn't have the option. It's not like there was a lot of options. Sometimes it's like, it's like, what else do you have to lose? You know what I mean? Like your back is already against the wall. Like, what do you have to lose? And depending on the area that you're living in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because Chicago still ain't an easy place to live in. You know what I mean? So I can't imagine back then.
Chicago's been corrupt for like 150 years. 100 and something, at least 100 years. Chicago's been corrupt. Since the Al Capone days, Chicago's been corrupt. Even before that.
Right.
And it's never going to change.
What was the most powerful moment of the movie to you? Like, do you have any like favorite moments or powerful moments that kind of caught you? I guess I'll start with you, Mambo.
No, I'll start with Keo.
I think
I'm trying to
for me, one of the parts that hit me was when Fred was giving that speech in the church, and the FBI agent was in the crowd, and he's watching him, and you couldn't tell whether or not William was taking it in and he was really on board, or he was just faking for the crowd. Like, it's that moment of like, which side is he on? Like that, I found that scene fascinating, man. It really hit me. And the thing, the big thing at the end, which I don't want to give away spoiler, but like that was definitely a part too. But like for me, that church thing was riveting, especially because of what he was saying at the time when all this stuff was going down. You just see the crowd getting into it. You could tell like the stakes were high.
Yeah, because that was his first speech after he came out of jail.
Yeah.
And first of all, the cinematography in that alone, I thought was amazing. To be quite honest with you, like that was very well shot. That was very well shot. Like they caught William, like they caught Bill through the peephole kind of thing. Like
yeah.
Like I understand what you're saying, because that got me in a sense too, where it's like, cause I think at that point he was in. Was in, and that was like the reminder of, like the FBI agents over there waving at him. He just like
snapped him back like, oh, okay, yeah, I got a job to do.
You're just like,
God. Yeah, at that moment I was like, yo, this guy's in it. Yo, he's in.
That's the thing that the movie kind of like plays with is your perception of where is he, what's going on in his head. Is he in? Is he messing with? Is he being the informant, or is he being a double agent? Is he, I think, and you get the sense that he himself at moments is confused himself and isn't actually totally sure of what he should or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like trying to live in both. And he has that moment when he is talking to him. Is it Roy, the FBI, his FBI handler?
Yeah.
And he's saying like, no, I mean, they're just giving, they're just giving school lunches. Like, what's the problem? And the idea that, no, you don't get it, and the equating the Panthers with,
like a
with
terrorist,
the Klan and saying the same thing, that whole like concept and idea. I mean, that was something that kind of like shook me, that scene of that, and the like framing and thinking like, does this FBI agent believe this? Like, is this what they believed at that time? And were they afraid for the sake of power, or were they afraid for the sake of like actual ideology and believing that like they want to destroy the I mean, I guess it's all the same. It's just like they wanted their fear of, change and destroying the status quo is really ultimately what's like motivating them. And so I don't know, that's the kind of like messes with you, the way that it messes with Bill O'Neill's character in that moment when he's like having his logic and idea of how he sees things being twisted around, and you see the agent doing it, and I don't know, there's like another level of where you're seeing what the agent's doing to Bill O'Neill, but then you're wondering like, what does the agent believe? And is the agent being manipulated himself by Hoover because of how, like, how much you see the reverence towards Hoover, and what, like, it's just such a mess. I don't know. It was,
and it's,
but there's a lot of powerful scenes, I'll say, in throughout the film. I think I was constantly kind of like pulled in oftentimes by the acting, and the strength of the acting. Like, the characters are so well developed, even though, to be honest, like, you don't get that much of a sense of Bill O'Neill's past, and you don't get the sense of Fred Hampton's real past. And you only get, let in so much into what his life is really like. But the way that they're acted and the power with which they act the characters, you're like, I don't know, you just really kind of become hypnotized by it in a way that was really captivating from beginning to end by both, like, Lakeith Stansfield's portrayal of Bill O'Neill and by Daniel Kaluuya's portrayal of Fred Hampton.
But what's crazy though too is like you're looking back on it, because he's at that point where it's like, you like an informant or whatever is going to come in, or a spy is going to come in, and normal situations, you're infiltrating something that's bad. You're infiltrating like a gang or like a drug cartel. So it's like, you might start feeling like you might be in, but ultimately you kind of know that, okay, what these guys are doing, yes, they're selling drugs, they're assassinating people, like they're not doing a good thing. So this is my job to kind of stop it. But that moral compass that you got to go by, where it's like, okay, you're asked to do this job, and it's obviously because it's keeping you out of jail. But then you're going there and you're looking at the stuff that's happening, and you're like, okay, but this isn't affecting anybody. Like Hampton and this chapter, what they're doing it's not destroying anybody. It's not destroying the community. You know what I mean? It's not harming people. You know what I mean? Like, like we're giving kids free lunches and trying to run a medical clinic. We're trying to open a medical clinic to make sure that, people are properly being taken care of. We're trying to make sure that people have some sort of empowerment so that they're not getting stepped on. So it's like coming back to say, like, these guys are just doing free lunches in schools. Like, what's, you know what I mean? So go ahead.
Do you think that him getting together with all these other gangs and groups was the catalyst for them to be like, you've got to go? Because I think that when the Panthers, that chapter was kind of just on that block, and they're talking about their thing and doing the schools and all that stuff like that. But I think that the second that he got together with the white supremacist guys and the Latino gang and then the other bigger gang in the city, I think that changed the way this thing was going. Because it went from, you see, like the school thing was, okay, we're trying to help the community, yada, yada. And then they were like, okay, well, you guys are with a gang that's got machine guns and all this other stuff. And I'm pretty sure the white guys got machine guns too. I'm pretty sure the Latino gangs got guns too. Like it changed the dynamic from, well, we're trying to help to we could take over if we felt like it.
Right, but I feel like they were kind of doing that from before. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel.
Yeah, but like it's different when all of these groups are isolated and they're in their little corner.
I mean, I think that I hear what you're saying, but I hear what you're saying, and I think that would be true if the case was that in other places, the FBI and local police agencies weren't also killing and trying to assassinate leaders in different places.
Oh, for sure.
Like it wasn't. Sure. So it's like it didn't help. It didn't make them feel more comfortable, for sure. But he was already on a list before that, and like he was, they were targeting him before that.
Yeah, but I think that before that, it was just throw him in jail, and then after that, it was like, well, he's got to go because he's going to be a martyr, and it's going to be a problem long term.
Yeah.
But they made him martyr anyway, so but the thing disappeared. Like after he died, it literally fell apart.
And
that's the thing with charismatic leaders, right? Like charismatic leaders, and it's all dependent on the person. It's all dependent on that one.
I look at it like a
leader.
Sports team. When you have that all-star player and he gets hurt, and there's nobody there to step up after that person, like it's a wrap. The team's done. Mm-hmm. You need the people in the wings that are ready to keep the thing going the same way, or at least be building up to take over. But they didn't. None of these groups ever had the next person to take over. It was all it's top heavy. Once that leader was out of the way, the whole thing fell apart. And I think that was a big problem with the civil rights thing. Either people were scared to step up, or there was just nobody as talented as the people that were at the top. I don't even know what the answer is, but that's what it feels like.
But I wonder, too, if part of it is, too, because maybe there were people that were ready to step up, and the way some of these guys got taken out, that might have put the fear in some of these guys to be like, well, you know what? Like, I don't know if this is worth it, because, I mean, you got to think, like, earlier in the movie, for example, their office gets blown to bits, right? Yeah. The first time, right? And then you see it a second, then it happened the second time where they just literally... Like the first time I heard this story in real life, I think it was there was a Black Panthers documentary. It was on PBS, probably maybe a couple of years ago. I want to say 2-3 years ago, and I didn't know that's how Fred Hampton died, right? I had no idea until I saw that doc, and I was like, it honestly kept me up at night because I'm like, yo, they let off one shot, they ran off 100, like they basically came there to kill everybody. And there's so much different events and instances in history where you can refer to where this happened, right? Just speaking to this example, like you wonder if, after that happens twice now, do you want to now be the guy to do this? You just saw what happened to somebody like Fred. You know what I mean? Like, do you want to step out on the line and stick your neck out? Like, even though you've already made this life decision to make this, to kind of die for this, but when you see it actually happen to this degree and this viciously, and you don't even know necessarily where you know where it's coming from, but it's like you're like a group, a chapter in Chicago. This is the FBI. Are you really going to be able to take out the FBI? So it's like, you know what I mean?
They had the other Panthers that were on the run, the dudes from California, all other places. They were already on the run, or they got killed, or they were in jail.
Right.
So it looked like this was like at the tail end of this thing.
Because I kind of look at it too, where it's sorry, go ahead, Mambo. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say. I mean, this is why they were, hijacking planes and seeking refuge in other countries, going to Cuba, going to Algeria, landing in East Africa in some cases. I mean, the messages were sent. Like those assassinations were messages being sent, and there was a true, like, you knew when your number was up. I mean, I remember when I met Lorenzo Camboa. He came to speak when I was in college, and I went and had lunch with him, and we were talking about he was a Panther back in the day, and he talked about how like it was a moment when they knew, they had been fighting and they knew that there was a target on their back, but there became a moment when he knew, like, oh, like they're really gonna kill me. Like they're really like there's a plan and they're coming, and he needed to get out, and like they're under the pretense of being arrested, and so he went, and back in the day, this is before proper security at airports, but he got on that airplane, him and a couple other Panthers pulled out a gun, and they're like, we're not going to Miami. We're going to Cuba. And he said it was just like doing that was an act of survival. It wasn't an act of like terrorism.
Right.
It was an act of like, I need to act. I cannot like, and part of it, like I want to continue to struggle and all this kind of stuff. And there's just, that's not going to happen here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's the thing, right? Like, to carry out that task, but then to actually see it blow up in your face. Because, you know, you're planning these things out, there's a worst case scenario. But when that worst case scenario shows up in your face, it's like that quote that Mike Tyson says, like, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? Like, it's,
yeah.
But it's like when you get that right in your face, you know what I mean? Like that the worst case scenario just kind of appear right in front of you. Like, you don't blame guys that go on the run, like a Eldridge Cleaver and stuff that, you know, that left the country and all that stuff. Like, you understand that, like, you get that, you know, and like that was I think a really serious moment in that movie when they're talking about, well, you know, where Hoover is saying, well, you know what happened with Huey P and what happened with Cleaver, we sent those guys to jail and they became stars. They became more powerful. So it's like, basically it's like, you know what you kind of have to do in this situation. And it's like, God, like, damn, you know, like, so it's like, you knew like the example was happening, but it's like on that other side, it's like, what do you do? Like, it's such a courageous point for these guys to live that kind of life, you know, for us essentially, because we were the future generation from that. But it's such a tough decision, man. So it's like when people are like, you know, in this day and age now, when you're asked to make that kind of life choice now, and it's like some people don't, you know, they decide to come off that ledge, and some people get ridiculed for it. I'm kind of like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I understand too, because that's not an easy decision to make.
Yeah,
you know, I think the other powerful moment for me, just to add to what you guys are saying, was, you know, was Hampton's girl, like Deborah Johnson, like trying to convince Fred that there's more to this revolution than just sacrificing and kind of giving up your life for the revolution. You know what I mean? Just because of the fact that they were having a child.
Yeah.
You know, like that I thought was kind of powerful, because it just, you know, thinking from the perspective of women, just like the women of the wives and the girlfriends of these leaders, they got to be so unbelievably strong, because you're being a wife, a mother to a child or children. Then you have that added pressure that comes along with thinking of like something is going to happen to your husband, or, you know, for somebody like her, just to see, you know, like we were saying before, like how history is played out in terms of just that past decade's assassinations with our black leaders and heroes. Like, like that's a tremendous amount of pressure to live through, and to be having to have that kind of pressure again. You know, we refer to the age, but like to have that kind of pressure on you at 20, you know what I mean, or 19 or whatever it is, like from in terms of Deborah Johnson's perspective, like that is a heavy cross to bear, man. You know what I mean? So it's like that moment was kind of powerful for me too, because you're just thinking of like Coretta King, Betty Shabazz. You're thinking of all these people that like, all these women that like had to like just basically go on without their partner, you know, because of the way they got just like completely assassinated. The ripple effects of that, it's like it ran through their family for generations, you know, in some cases. So it's like that is such a tremendous amount of pressure. I guess kind of to wrap up here, because we're going to have like a super long pod on this, but I guess kind of like, what are your final thoughts of the movie? Because like, I know one of the questions I wanted to ask, and I'm almost afraid to ask the question to see if you guys want to answer this, but like, I think I kind of asked it before in a roundabout way, but like, why historically are they so threatened by us in this sense? I don't even know if you want to touch that.
I mean, you asked that's like a really like loaded, wide-ranging question, Calvin. Like, why? Calvin's like, why is racism a thing? Why is racism?
But I guess, what are your final thoughts on just, I guess, you know, in a small sense that, and then just in a small sense about the movie overall? Like, what are your final thoughts to kind of like wrap this up a little bit? Who wants to go first?
I mean, I think not enough people will see it. And that's like just a sad thing of like movies like this that have that historical importance. It feels like never do enough people watch it and see it. But I think that it was phenomenal. I think it's a phenomenal story. It's a well told, like tightly packaged story. They're not trying to do too much when they tell this story, which I think is often when you have somebody who's like larger than life, the temptation is to do too much. And I think I fully appreciate that what they did was so kind of like targeted in what they wanted to talk about and cover. But and part of that as well is just the fact that like when you have somebody who is assassinated and killed at such a young age, there actually isn't even enough material to like, you know, build. But they could have done so much more, and they didn't. They kept it in like this tight space that I think for as a film really works well and helps kind of like digest the story. I think that I look forward to seeing one of them, and I if I had to pick one, I'd say Lakeith, like winning that award for best supporting actor, because the acting is absolutely phenomenal, and super powerful, and with such like complex characters as well.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a interesting story, and I hope people, you know, take the message, the organization and working together message from the movie. I going back to what you're saying is, I think that people, the powers that be, you know, I think they fear people getting organized, and it's regardless of the race, regardless of, you know, economic status or whatever. It's just like people working together, or at least having a common issue that they're working on. I think that's the greatest fear. And depending on where these guys are going or what they were thinking about, I think that's one of the issues that people need to realize, is that we're better and stronger together, united.
Yeah. And
we can get a lot more done in our community united. Like just a simple thing about feeding the kids in school. Like, why are more people not putting that kind of stuff together? These guys can raise millions of dollars for, you know, a hashtag, but you guys can't figure out a way to just feed some kids at the school or something like that. Like that blows my mind. But you know, I think that it gets back down to the point of we need to be organized over the right things, and we're not. We're disjointed and spread out, and focusing on stuff that doesn't matter, or just, you know, missing the big picture. I think that's a huge problem. And I think this movie kind of shows that you don't need a huge organization or a bank behind you. Just a couple people in the community getting together and doing something that has an impact, like wide-ranging impact, and that's what happened here. You can argue for the good or the bad based on what they were trying to do, but you can't deny that these guys had an impact on the community. Yeah, that's the takeaway I took.
Yeah, I think I had a few things. I think just like, you know, to kind of, I guess, touch on what I was saying before, I just think it's scary of just the things that's happened to us as Black people for so many hundreds of years. The amount of leaders that either were imprisoned or assassinated or had to flee the country, you know, as Mambo was talking about before, is unbelievable. And it's something that's still kind of being felt today. And the thing that kind of resonates with me, too, is the fact that, you know, looking at this movie and you know, kind of replaying history, this really didn't happen that long ago. It's not like this happened like 100 years ago. You know, like this happened like Hampton died, like early 70s? Like, this was like, I don't even know if this was even 50 years ago. And it's crazy because, like, there's just, you see it in so many factions of life. Like, it's 2021, right? And you're still hearing about, like, so many firsts that are still being had today. Like, you know, for example, I think this past week that the first Black mayor of Boston was recently announced, and, you know, she's a woman. You know, or you're thinking about like the introduction of reparations in the town of Evanston, Illinois. they're like, it's 2021. We're still having to go through first. Like, it kind of shows you just how far we still have to go to achieve like all the things that we need to achieve. So, like, I guess to answer my own question, it's like, I thought the movie could have been better. No, I'm just joking. Yeah. Like, I just think we need to see more of these kind of movies overall, and it makes me think of like the first time I think I had you guys both on a podcast together, like a few years ago. I believe it might have, like, just looking back on it, I think it was the Black Panther movie that came out. That was like 3 years ago now. Wow, that's crazy. Man, that was 3 years ago. Holy smokes. But like, we're talking about how there just needs to be more representation. A few years ago, like, as we're talking about like the Oscars So White, for example, and you're still seeing incremental progress. I know it's probably too late to get into this now, but there was an article, I'm just going to pull it up real quick, but it was just talking about how like Hollywood is still losing, like, they're basically costing themselves like billions of dollars every year in terms of not. Let me rephrase it. Hold on a second. I'm trying to pull it up. So just to report, the article was from Forbes, and it was saying that Hollywood loses about $10 billion a year over a lack of black representation. Like, so it's kind of telling you, like, this is actually costing them money.
Think about it in the 90s, how many black movies were out there by black directors with black cast. We had a ton of movies. We weren't worried about the Oscars. We weren't thinking about that. We just got good quality content made by us for us. And in TV shows too.
Yeah.
And that just all died. And, you can get into the reasons, but it's a lot of greed and people stabbing each other back or kicking the ladder from when they got on top. But there was a good time during the 90s where there's a black movie coming out like every other weekend, with a soundtrack full of music, and everybody was eating, everybody was working together.
I agree, and that's, to me, it's like, I think I have a feeling like you're gonna see more of these, more movies, I should say, more black movies or more black content shown in the theaters, just in light of what's happened in the last year and how sharp that light of social justice has shone the light on all facets of life. And it made like other races, corporations, and industries like start to see what we've always seen, that there's still so much work to be done in a lot of areas pertaining to us, especially when it pertains to talent, like even such as the both of you. You know what I mean? So like, I think this movie was so well done, but there needs to be more movies like this. We need to see more Judases of the Black Messiahs and have more of these conversations on these kind of like thought-provoking movies, or these movies that's retracing history.
I will say this though, I do want to see more movies like this, but I also want to see like happy, fun, not the end of the world type movies where I gotta be like, damn it, white people, man. Like,
no, absolutely. I hope I'm not, when I said that, I'm not pretending to.
I got you, man. I got you, man. But I'm saying, like, we need that because we were getting like The Wood and all this other type of movies in addition to Boys in the Hood, in addition to Menace to Society and Dead Prez. We're getting all this other content.
There was a wide variety. Yeah.
It's well rounded. So we had black people being comedians, we had black people doing drama, action movies, like you name it, we were doing it, and we covered the gambit, and we weren't limited to, because I equate a lot of this stuff to like it's almost like porn for misery, like black people misery porn kind of thing, where like I can't watch another slavery movie. Like I'm not gonna do it. I know it was bad and everything like that, but like there's other things that we did, man. Black people got more history and just more stuff that happened besides slavery.
Yeah.
And where I feel like Hollywood is too focused on that time frame.
Yeah.
Like I want, like, like we had that movie with the hidden. What's the ladies that were the
Hidden Figures?
Yeah, Hidden Figures. Like I want more of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like just like a quality, lighthearted movie, and you could put your message in there too. But like it was just a good movie of black people doing good, something positive too. We need that.
Yeah.
And it's just like it seems that negativity porn type thing is just too much. Like anytime I see a black movie, it's negative.
I will say that I think that there is a lot of what you're talking about is out there. Like, it exists. Like the way that movies were in the 90s, I'd actually argue that there's even more, and it's been more democratized. I think the issue is that whereas, you know, at that time, the way that you found out about movies and you heard about them was like there were spaces where like it was contained and there was a clear path to making a black movie. There was a clear path to where you would hear, you know, the bigger picture movies. And nowadays it's just like, if you want to, you can see there's so many independent movies out there, like really high quality, great black cinema that's being made, but like the economics aren't there. It's not going to get the distribution deal that you're looking at. And because the VHS kind of like market isn't there and there's way more competition, that like ironically there's like more movies now being made. And the issue is that I'm actually maybe asking the question more: is it that there's like so many, that there's so much competition, that there's no like clear way of where it rises up to a certain level where everybody's watching Friday, because when Friday comes out, everybody's or everybody's watching The Wood because that's like the movie next. Like, I don't know. I think that in my neighborhood, right downstairs, like right near my building, there's a cinema. Like there's a couple in short walking distance to me that are like independent black cinemas, and they have film festivals where they play, you know, they'll have like an African film festival where they're just like pumping out and showing all these like African films that are happening. And there's so much content. And then there's like black film festivals on a specific genre, like black sports films that are happening. And they have like a large amount of content. So I don't know. I think it's more like it's so diffused now. That it's harder to rise above. And the movies that do rise above are the movies that have the economics behind them.
Well,
and
I think
that is going to.
Yeah, they got the backing. They got the backing of the Hollywood, and this is the type of movies they like, so they push those. Because I think too, you're right.
You didn't need that back in the day.
Because we promoted it ourselves, and now we're waiting on Amazon to do it for us. And Netflix, I think that's the difference between now and then, especially for the 90s, was that we would take it upon ourselves to put the soundtrack together to promote it, and we had our own places to promote. Like we had The Source and Vibe and these kind of magazines, and you had the TV shows on BET, and we were all focused on these areas. But now it's super spread out, and I think we're waiting for Amazon to tell us, hey, this is a black movie for you guys. Here you go. Or Netflix or whatever. And I think that you're right. It's definitely that this stuff is happening, but I don't think that people really see it unless it's being handed to us on a platter from somebody else.
Like it's funny.
Or you're going to film festivals, or you have a Vimeo Pro subscription, and you're willing to like on top of your Vimeo Pro subscription spend $15 to support an independent film. Yeah.
This is the thing though. People don't know about this stuff at all.
No.
Like if you ask your friends that aren't in the industry, hey, do you see this other black movie? And they're like, is it on Amazon? Nope. Well, nope. I'm not going to watch it. Like, Like it's the thing of people don't want to donate to something unless it's approved by the masses, I guess,
masses, or you're being told
powers
to
that
watch.
be.
Yeah. No, it makes sense, and plus in this era too, where there's a race. There's definitely like a race for content. Right, because there's so many different streaming platform services, channels. There's a race for content. So I agree in some senses where sometimes you'll pop up on Netflix and I'm like, God damn, I didn't know there was this much black movies. Where the hell these movies come from? Like you don't hear about it at all.
Netflix will buy them up and then bury them.
Yeah, seriously.
And bring them up and and then they'll just promote it, like lightly promote it during
February.
Black
by the way, we had these 30 movies that we put out.
30. Like here are these like 2,000 movies that we have that are just sitting here. They've been here for the last year. You just haven't known because we haven't promoted them.
Like what was
and the filmmakers are out on Twitter trying to get people to watch their films. Like I have like a list of filmmakers or people in the industry that I follow that they're like, oh, watch this is available now on Netflix, or this is available on Prime, and you just you write it down, you make a note of it, and
put it in your list.
You gotta
put it on your list, and then it's 6 months go by and you haven't watched the movie yet. Yep.
I think that's a failure on our part.
See that stuff.
But I think that's a failure on our part because we weren't dependent on MTV, whatever, or even BET. If I want to tell you about a song, I used to go out of my way to let you know about this song. And if you liked it, you would tell your friends about it. We weren't waiting for somebody to give it to us or somebody to tell us.
Right, but Keo, back then, right, when you think of if you go back 20, 30 years ago,
we didn't have this stuff.
How many movies, how many songs were being made? Right now,
insane.
I just need a computer and a MIDI keyboard, and I can make an album. And the fact that that's even possible, and not even that it's possible, that it's happening, means there's just so much content out there right now. There are so many Black movies that are out there right now that it's just not possible for them to write. There's so many podcasts. Back in the day, there were.
That's true. Yeah.
15 years ago, you're or 20 years ago, they're I know a podcast. There's 4 of them that exist. And I'll listen to one of the 4 podcasts that are out there. And now there's
4 million.
Tens of hundreds of thousands of them, millions of them. I mean, there's just so much out there. And what ends up happening is that there's just so many amazing movies that we'll just never see because I'll never even know about it. It's great. There's more being made, and it's getting more boutique, and people can find their audience and their niche. But at the same time, there's not the same connectivity where there's a community sense of everybody watching the same thing. Everybody's listening to that show. Everybody's,
for sure. There was a focus. People used to know, every month, go get the Source magazine or at least look at it. And we all had a central focal point that everybody could go talk about or meet at, and we don't have that now. It's just the Wild West.
And the things that float up are the things that make money. So, when you think of music, the things that float up are not necessarily the best tracks. It's the tracks that are going to get the most, that are people that are well connected and people that are going to make the most money.
Yeah,
and that's just
for sure.
The art form is
You know what it reminds me of, though? Actually,
money.
You know what it reminds me of, actually, because as you guys are talking, it reminds me of I think it was Cineplex Odeon, especially in the light of what happened with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. All of a sudden, I don't know if you guys saw this, but I'm sure I know you're in New York, but I'm sure you saw this too, Mambo. But they put out a link on because obviously the lockdown, all the theaters are closed. They put this link out for, I think you had 30 days to watch as much Black movies as you wanted. And it was it was 2-3 years worth of movies. And I'm like, good Lord. I didn't even get a chance to finish watching all of them. It ended up expiring before I had a chance to get through half of them. But I think that's how I saw The Photograph with Lakeith and Issa Rae. That's how I saw that movie. But it was just it's it got promoted because of what was happening during that period in time. And then it's once that died down, it's okay, it's gone again. The theaters aren't really still open, but it's okay, where's that push for that, Black content, those movies? But like I said, again, referring to that Forbes article, it's a $10 billion loss that Hollywood is taking almost on an annual basis on just from a lack of Black representation. So it's so we're talking about these thousands of movies and different things, and I'm definitely not disputing that. I agree with you because I'm seeing some of those things on my Netflix and Prime apps and stuff. But it's at the same time, it's okay, why aren't these things being promoted? It's there's
promotion costs money, man.
Yeah, there's a disconnect there, but there's a strong disconnect there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a strong disconnect.
I mean, but it's definitely not for a lack of content. That's all I'll say. I definitely don't think the stuff is there, man. But yeah, the promotion it's hard. It's hard. Every year I go to there's the African American Film Festival down in Miami is like, there's incredible. Like the amount of content that they have every year. It goes to the National Association of Black Journalists. There's all the movies that they have that are premiering and movies that you've never, movies and TV shows that you're like, where is this? I have not heard of this.
Yeah.
So how do we fix it?
Yeah.
How do we fix it? Like, what do we do to let people know about this stuff? Like, what do we need to do?
I mean, I think it's like nowadays, I think the industry is just changing to be more targeted, right? So like the idea, I don't think, and now isn't like the same as it was before. It's like, I want to make this thing and I want like everybody in the community to see it. It's like your communities are tighter, right? So now it's not just like I'm making a Black movie. It's like I'm making a movie for Black women who are from the South. And so I'm going to make a movie that's really going to connect with them, and you're targeting that audience and you're getting promoted in those kind of spaces. Because there's just so many movies now.
Yeah.
That I think it's about that. The same way that podcasts are, right? Like podcasts are like more hyper targeted, than radio shows ever were. Radio shows were like, we're making this radio show. It gets syndicated nationally, tens of millions of people are going to listen to it. And if you don't like it, well, you're listening to the radio station, so you're going to listen to it anyways.
Like this is going to be on from now, 1 to 4 regardless.
I have to be, right now you have to be active. You're an active participant in the process of the material you're going to consume. You're not just turning the TV on and watching what's on. You're not just like turning the radio on and listening to what's there. You go to your app, you look for a podcast, you try to find something that you connect with and you like have, like that has some meaning for you. You then have to click download to listen to it and take the time when you feel you have the time to listen to it. The same with movies. You have to scroll through and find something that you want to watch, not whatever they tell you to watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that act of doing that means that the marketing is completely different.
Yeah.
And the marketing's smaller, the marketing's more targeted. The whole industry is so different. So different.
Well,
and what it does is it's just like we're all more disconnected.
Yeah, having the options has made people be more spaced out than ever before. When you really think about it.
And then things float up. Like the great content that everybody connects with floats up, like Coming to America.
Mm-hmm.
2. It's that movie that like everybody's mad about it, but at the same time everybody saw it.
Yeah. Oh no, it was a win for Eddie Murphy and a win for Amazon. They won all day.
Oh my god,
absolute win! And I swear it was you that was saying to me, Keo, that they might be doing a third.
Yeah, they are doing a third one. That's how much money they got, how many views they got, and eyes on it. I think it's worth it to make another one.
Calvin can't wait.
I got my alerts ready.
What a way to give a rib shot to the end of this podcast. Thanks, Andrew. That was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, fellas. Well, thank you for hopping on this latest episode of the Ave Podcast, man. I appreciate the both of you for coming on. Every time I have the two of you guys at the same time, it's always a good conversation. So, hopefully I can continue that trend in the future. Hopefully sooner than later. I know Mambo's been a really long time for you, but I'm really happy to have you back on, and that was like I said, it was fun to have. I'll allow you guys for the next, 10, 20 seconds, however long it takes. You guys can plug whatever the hell you guys want to plug, if you want to do that. But thank you guys once again. But hurry up, plug whatever you guys want to plug.
Nah, man, I'm good. I appreciate being on here, man. Thank you for having me back, man.
No problem. But I'm gonna force you, Keo, because you have a YouTube page. Plug your shit.
My YouTube's for DJs, man. Like it's not normally page. It's definitely for DJs. So, but it's just DJ Keo. That's it. Just Keo.
Okay. And what about you, Mambo? I know you can't shed light on your stuff just yet because you're wrapping up stuff, but
yeah, no, we're finishing up a season that's going to be coming out on the show I work on is called Invisibilia, and we have a season coming out that's going to launch April 22nd. April 22nd, we're going to have 5 episodes coming out, one every week, and the first one is going to be actually on. I mean, I can say this. It's like, well, I don't think I can say. I don't know. But April 22nd, we're going to be launching a new season of Invisibilia, and I'm excited because I've been a fan of the show for years, so I'm happy to join and look forward to doing some more stories in the future.
No, for sure. I know we joke back and forth, but keep doing what you're doing. Same with you, Keo. We always talk, but you guys keep doing what you're doing, man, and we just we keep pushing this stuff forward. So, I'll definitely be looking out for this for your new series at the end of April for sure. So, but like I said, but thank you guys once again for hopping on, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thanks, Keo. It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
Calvin. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of the Ave Podcast. Special shout out goes out to Andrew Mambo and DJ Keo for hopping on the Ave to have a conversation about Judas and the Black Messiah. We'll be back with a new episode on Easter Friday with the annual State of the Raptors address, where we look at the Raptors season as a whole. And this season may be the first time in 8 years where they may actually miss the playoffs altogether. I've never done one of these where the Raptors were struggling this badly. So this is going to be interesting. Listen, rate, review, and subscribe to all of the shows from South Shore Ave. And to check out my catalog of past podcast episodes, check out southshoreave.com and double up on them, especially during the Easter break. Once again, that's southshoreave.com. For Andrew Mambo and DJ Keo, this is Cal C. And you just tuned into the Ave Podcast on South Shore Ave Radio. Until next time, folks, peace. We out.